Good afternoon. My name's Rob Jackson. I'm the UK Managing Director for Elisa DVI, who provide measurement and optimization solutions for some of Europe's biggest clients. I'm very pleased to be joined today by Evan Lapointe, who is the VP of Search Discovery and also the creator of Satellite, which is a real-time behavior-driven tag management solution. Hello, Evan.
Hello, thanks for having me.
No, it's our pleasure. I'm also joined by Ed Brocklebank, who's a senior analyst at Elisa DVI. Hello, Ed.
Hi.
So, Evan, why don't you start by giving us a quick overview of the Satellite product and what it actually does?
Absolutely, my pleasure. So, you described it well. Satellite is almost like a real-time analytics tool happening on your site, and based on what users are doing, we can bring obviously things like tags into the page and record data, but we can also do things with chat, with surveys, with multivariate and A/B testing. Really any technology that you can install on your front end can be delivered through Satellite, and the point is to handle everything that you're doing today with ease that just isn't there today, allow you to deploy things to the site quickly and easily, and allow you to make changes on the fly, but also to get a lot deeper. And I think that's what really makes Satellite unique, is the depth that it offers. The reason we built this tool is to get down to that really granular level and provide our users help where they're spending the most time right now and having the most struggle with IT and custom development.
Cool. Okay. Well, again, one of the reasons why we wanted to speak to Evan so soon in this project was because Satellite has a very visual, compelling case study for how it can be used. So why don't you begin by showing us a little bit around the interface, Evan?
Sure, absolutely. So what we're looking at on my screen right now is what you would see when you were managing one of your web properties. The overview page of this particular profile, this BugMax property that we have here, is telling me that I don't have any analytics accounts installed yet on this site, and I do have over on my Chrome window here the site up, and if I refresh that, you can see down in Google Analytics real time that we're not seeing any data coming in, clearly because Google Analytics is not installed there. Installing tools is very easy in Satellite, so we've taken the installation of Google Analytics down to a few clicks. So if we just want to type in a name for each of our accounts that we install, that'll help us to differentiate between multiple installations of one account. And if you do have, for example, a roll-up GA account in addition to a property-specific GA account, you can always handle that right there. So let me go into Google Analytics and actually grab the correct profile ID. And this is all it's going to actually take for me to install Google Analytics on this site with Satellite. And I'll go ahead and create Google Analytics account, and that's going to install GA on my site. Now, if I want, I can go in and I can specify a lot of configuration about Google Analytics. So everything that you can do in GA as far as cookies are concerned, customizing campaign tracking for what URL parameters go into campaigns, all this is all customizable directly in our UI, and you can see every single thing that GA can do. It can be handled here without ever even looking at any JavaScript whatsoever. So what we just installed Google Analytics. We didn't actually do any of the configuration, but when I go over here in my Chrome window, now I can reload this page, and I'm actually going to see page views coming in GA real time, and literally with 2 clicks and the typing of an account ID, I've installed Google Analytics on this site.
So what are the first steps then when we want to configure it? We've now got a basic GA tag on there. I think one of the things we see, working with web analytics, that a lot of people assume that they do analytics once they've got that basic GA tag on, but obviously we know there's so much more to a robust implementation. So how do we go about starting to configure the tool?
Great question. So let's say, for example, over on our page, we're going to want to track when people are using this form and what form fields they're using. Now you can see I actually already have a rule that's doing that, and it's passing the actual ID, the actual element. So if I move through this form, I can see on the next click that I do, when I move into this next field, I can actually see that's going to say last name in a second once this page name updates. So I have rules that are actually managing that in Satellite. There's nothing in this page that's actually saying track this element or track that element. And this entire form is actually being tracked using a single rule. Now, we're talking about an event-based rule in this case. And the reason we call it an event-based rule is because somebody has done something in the page. We have page load rules that can actually handle this page itself loading and say, okay, when this page loads, I want the user to get a survey. Or when this page loads, I want the user to get a custom variable set in Google Analytics, or maybe have a chat feature installed as well. But for this case, we're actually looking at the user interacting within the page, not just the simple page load itself. And we can do all of that, again, without writing any JavaScript. And in this case, we have an event-based rule to track the form. And the event that we're going to use is when the user focuses on an element in the form. And what that means is when the form field actually becomes active. And you can see every time I activate a form field, I see a page view in Google Analytics. Now, the tag is going to ask me, what am I looking to focus on? In this case, I'm looking to focus on an input. These are all inputs, these different fields in the form. And as I move through those fields, I'm going to focus on each one. I can also say, I don't care necessarily if they focus. The user actually has to change that field. So I can choose change. And in this case, it's actually going to wait for the user to modify that field rather than just go to it. And I can build another funnel, again, out of the user actually completing these fields. But for the sake of this one, we'll just keep it on focus. Now I can also say that this rule only applies to certain pages of the site, so this form may only show up on certain pages, and I might not want this to be relevant to those other pages that this form doesn't show up on, and I can control which pages that shows up on or not. But for the most part, my identifier is going to ask me two things. What did the user do, in this case focus, and what do they do it to, an input? Now, in Google Analytics, I just describe how I want to track this. So in the case of GA here, I already have a page view that I've entered, and the page view is going to be forms, and then dynamically replace this.id. Now, in the case here, this is the input. So it's going to grab the input's ID and pass it right in, which is why when I click on that first name field, it actually says forms and dynamically replaces this.id with f_name, which is actually the ID of this field, which helps me differentiate between each of these fields. So with one very simple rule and one substitution, I can create, literally with writing just a few characters here, not seeing any JavaScript whatsoever, I can track this entire form. And again, when somebody moves through this form, I'm seeing them move through that form right here in real time. I can also make events out of this as well. So I can choose events, and I just would fill in the category action label. If this were non-interaction, I could check this box to not affect bounce rate. I can set custom variables in any slot at any scope, and all this without writing or even seeing any JavaScript whatsoever. So it makes it very, very easy for me to go ahead and track in-page interaction. And normally, it's not like the developers would feel that this was something challenging, but I would say it would be very unlikely if somebody made a request to track this form in this way, they would get that live on the site in any less than a couple of weeks. With Satellite, I can get that live on the site in a matter of a couple of minutes.
Yeah, when I first saw you demo Satellite, Evan, the event-based rules were certainly something that stood out for me because looking, some of the other tag management systems really don't handle this at all. And like Rob said, people install the GA code. Maybe they go one step further and install e-commerce tracking codes, but then they just leave it. And you ask them, you know, what are your micro conversions on the site? How many people filled in a form or filled in half the form and didn't go any further? And they haven't got any idea. So for us as a company that works with this and helps to improve conversion rate, something like this where we can go in and we can set up some micro sort of conversion funnels, so we'll know how far someone got through the form without having to go through them, their developers, and be able to present that information to them, I think is really valuable.
Absolutely. I think one of the bottlenecks we see with implementations is the number of hours a client has to invest in dev time, particularly if that developer or the dev company is based externally or as a third party. So immediately there's a benefit for the client straight away just on how much money they can save from their IT team. I suppose it begs the question then, Evan, what kinds of challenges do you see coming back from the dev teams? I mean, often with clients we find that there can be a bit of friction maybe between the marketing team and the IT team. They don't like the sort of streams being crossed. What are the typical challenges you've seen clients have in handing over this kind of flexibility to the marketing team?
Oh, I wouldn't know anything about conflict between marketing and IT teams. I've never seen that before. Yeah, I mean, that's definitely something that we have to overcome every time that a new technology comes around. And it's, of course, we're in that boat right now because this is an adjustment. But think back, I mean, it's a little ways back, but, you know, maybe 10 or 12 years ago when content management systems came out, and when IT used to hand code every page of the site and write all the HTML for every single page on an individual basis, the content management system came out, which allowed you to centrally create pages anytime you wanted. And they had the same reaction to that. They said, oh my gosh, if the content management system has any problems, the whole site's going to blow up. And, you know, they all freaked out because they were doing something very manually before. It was reliable, slow, and simple. And they created a system, a content management system back then that would help them to make less technical users able to write things. And now my mom writes a blog on WordPress, and she writes web pages every day without ever seeing HTML. And CMS systems have 100% market penetration today as a result of what they can do. Now, tag management puts us exactly right back in that place to say, this is a paradigm shift. It's going to move something that's very technical out of IT, and we make it very non-technical. And they do have some concern about that, as all progress is met with concern. And there are systems built within Satellite, like our workflow. So for example, when I created this rule, and I created this rule a while ago to track this form, that rule will go live in a testing environment. It will go live in my staging environment or my pre-production environment so that I can test all my rules out. And it also moves into this approvals queue. And in this approvals queue, I'll see every single rule that any user in the system adds. And this is where we say IT can make their home. So if the analytics person or the marketer is going and creating these rules and testing them, well, they now have the power to do things that they couldn't do before. But they don't necessarily have the power to push those live on the site without IT's approval, because IT likes to know what's going on. They like to be involved in the process. They like to be aware of what's happening to the site. And they certainly don't want to give up that awareness that they have today. So the approvals workflow is a great way for them to stay involved. And they now have the ability to see when new rules are added, who made those changes, what the actual rule will do, both on the page and with the tools. And they can approve this rule if they're okay with it, or they can reject the rule if they're not okay with it. And when they reject rules, they can add notes, and those notes are going to be emailed back to the person who last created the rule or modified the rule, and they can make whatever changes the IT team needs to have changed so that they can go ahead and approve this so it could be published. So the IT team still has a role to play, and they still have that feeling of control.
Yeah.
But what we've done them the favor of is now they don't actually have to write all that JavaScript and do all that work, particularly around event-based rules. And I like that you guys really gravitated toward event-based rules at first, because yes, there are a lot of TMSs out there, and almost all of them work on the page level, because almost all tools and people are limiting themselves to the page level because the work is so difficult. They're not even asking for the difficult things because it's so difficult to do the easy things. And with Satellite, that barrier is brought down. And the only way that we can keep Satellite relevant over time is to make it do things easily that you wouldn't even ask for today. And that's what event-based rules are all about.
Fantastic.
Would you be able to show us setting up another rule, just to give us a quick demo on the fly?
So we had this form tracking rule here. And let's say, for example, now this page over on my BugMax page, this page isn't developed, but let's say when somebody clicked on this special offer for $50 off, that there was going to be a pop-up or a modal that would display as a result of that interaction taking place. Now, the thing that we might want to do is actually track when that happens and track when the users make that click. And if we didn't want to come over and create a new rule and describe in the identifier what that element was, we actually have a system built right in to Satellite to allow you to make those requests right from the page. And this is a tool that's designed to help bigger organizations or organizations with multiple stakeholders to actually go ahead and handle inbound requests from their marketing teams, from their agencies, from consultants, from usability, etc. And that tool is called Rover. So when I load Rover up on the page, it's going to show up at the top of my page, and it's going to automatically first show me everything on the page that Satellite is tracking. So maybe for the first time ever, many of our clients are able to answer the question, what are we tracking on this page? Now, you're seeing a lot of stuff highlighted that I don't have rules for, and that's because these match our default rules. Now, with Satellite, we pre-package default rules that are going to help you track things that we think you might want to track, like download links, off-site links, people changing the orientation of their iPad or iPhone or other mobile device, people zooming their device, dialing telephone numbers. You can see this telephone number here is highlighted, and if you go to this page on an iPhone, that will actually turn into a link, and if they tap that link to dial the call, we can track that. And then at the very top, we have dead headers and dead images, which are tracking anytime somebody clicks on an image or a header on the site that doesn't do anything. And this is a really helpful rule to have, especially to start off with. And you can get these great reports out of Google Analytics to say, here are the top 500 images on my site that people are clicking on, and nothing happens. And you can give that to your usability teams and say, let's make these images do something. Now, after I've seen via Rover what I'm already tracking, I can also request new tracking. And you can see when I mouse over elements, I get this little inspector that pops up. So let's look at the inspector for the special offer. And the inspector is going to tell me, well, you're looking at a div, it has this class, it has this ID. These are the types of things that I would normally put into my identifier in that event-based rule. But with Rover, I don't have to go into the rule to do that. I can actually just make a rule suggestion. And I can say, let's just track this on this page. And we'll say, let's track this as an event in GA. And we'll hit save. And now we get a green outline on this instead of a blue outline. And the colors differentiate what existing rules are on the page versus requests for new rules. And all these suggestions I can see up in my suggestions list. And if other people have made suggestions to this page, I would also see their suggestions in this list. So I'm not asking for things that have already been requested. Now, where this gets really cool is when I come back into Satellite, let's say my agency was the one that requested that tag. When I come back in and I look at my dashboard the next day, I'll see my inbox has a new item in it. Now, when I go into my inbox, at the very top in blue is something I haven't read yet, and I can open this up and I can see the notes that this request, I can just see the things that I just added in that request I made from Rover. So I did just type, let's track this as an event in GA. It knows it's on the Bug Max site. And right from this suggestion, I can begin the process of creating a rule. So right now, I've come back into event-based rule, and my identifier is going to actually be pre-filled when I do this, because Rover has grabbed that element right off the page. And for the less technical user, again, we were talking earlier about how this is built in layers. For the less technical user, we don't want them to have to know all that HTML gobbledygook to describe. We want them literally just to be able to point to something on the screen and say, track this, make a request, and it's done. So let's say track the $50 offer is the name of the rule, and all of our rules are going to describe not a tag, but what the user's actually done. We call that the top-down approach to tag management, because when a user clicks on the $50 offer, you may want to do multiple things. You may want 3 tags to fire, and you shouldn't have to build 3 rules when the user's only done one thing. So that's a top-down approach. So the identifier is good. We'll go ahead and set the event. We'll use a page view so we can see it over here in real time. So we'll say clicked the offer. And we'll add that page view. And we'll save this rule. Now, as long as my selector came through okay, when I refresh this page over here, I should be able to see this bug click coming through. And it might not have updated my library quite yet, because sometimes it might take 20, 30 seconds to update my library. But now I'll be tracking when people actually come through and click on this bug, and there now I'm seeing these clicks come in. So if I click a bunch of times, you can see these clicks are coming in on the bug, or not on the bug, excuse me, on the $50 off, and here my page name says click the offer. So I've just added new tracking to this page in a matter of a few seconds, and I never even looked at the markup or anything. I literally asked for it on the page, it came into the system, I created the rule, I described in GA how I want to track it as a page view, hit save, and it's live on the site. And again, it's live on my development site, so I can test it. The $50 offer tracking has moved into my approval workflow. I can go ahead and approve that if I'm an approver and have the correct rights. And once I approve a rule, it'll move over into my history as an unpublished change. And anytime I'm ready to go ahead and publish the property, I can hit publish property, confirm that, and now all the stuff that's live in my development environment and has been approved will now go live in my actual production environment, and my real customers will start getting these rules, and I'll start recording all this data for my real customers.
So what we're talking about, I suppose, is not just efficiency gains for the dev team, but also for the marketers. So what you're actually doing is making people on both sides very happy by removing these sort of manual tasks from their plate. So in terms of functionality then, is there anything we haven't covered yet, Evan? Is there anything else you want to show us within the tool?
Well, I mean, the only thing that most other people would be interested in would be how you would add other types of basic marketing tags. Yeah. So let's just say in the case of the $50 offer, if we were driving display traffic to this page and you wanted to drop a floodlight tag into the page as well to confirm that people did click that, you can just drop that exact floodlight tag straight into our UI here, and you hit save. And now when somebody clicks this, not only will GA increment a page view, but also your tag will fire as well. We have a Chrome plugin that comes with Satellite that if you do happen to go to AdWords, and I'll just show you an example, we actually don't require you to grab those tags at all. So if I come into my AdWords account and I actually, in this, I'm your agency, I'm driving paid search traffic to the client, and I wanted to see when people downloaded the white paper and I wanted to put this Google AdWords confirmation code, this code here onto the page, well, our browser plugin actually adds a button to Google's actual site. So you're on Google's site here. The plugin will detect tags as you go around to different vendor pages.
That's really
we'll
nice.
add to my site satellite button to this page. Yeah. And anytime I click this button, I'll just choose which property so I'll choose my Bug Max property, for example, and I'll select the property, and it will add that tag into whatever rule you decide you'd like to have that added to without you even having to copy this or even grab it whatsoever. We've even had clients who have done releases of their website, and they go to their homepage and they see a typo on the homepage, and they come into Satellite and they fix the typo so that every user who comes to the page doesn't see the typo. And they do that because it's going to take them so much longer to re-release the site to fix the typo. Now, they're going to do that because you don't want the typo actually in the markup. But in Satellite, you can come in and create a rule and fix that typo on that page literally in 5 seconds and have that live on the site while the dev teams are working on the actual fix.
So, I mean, looking at it in summary, you're saving clients a bunch of money on development time. You're saving clients a bunch of money on the side of the marketers. You're improving the workflow between IT and marketing. You're giving marketers the power to control privacy and become compliant with the new cookie legislation. You're allowing people to implement very advanced specifications of Google Analytics and at the same time manage third-party tags. I mean, all of this must cost an absolute fortune. Do you want to tell us how the pricing model works for Satellite?
Absolutely, and frankly, I'll leave that up to you because you being one of our partners, all of our partners have service models that layer into the offering that we have, and some of our partners opt to have the service model and technology sold together, and others opt to separate it like we do. So I'll make sure that everybody wants to come and talk to you about the particulars of pricing. But what I can tell you about our pricing is, philosophically, we do not feel like Satellite is something where we need to get every possible dollar out of each customer. Because like a content management system, this is a technology that can be used over tens of thousands of websites, if not hundreds of thousands or even millions of websites. And if we have that kind of a customer base, I don't have any reason to charge an arm and a leg to any one of my clients. And we've built it to scale like crazy. We've built it easy to use. We've built great resources into the tool so people can teach themselves how to use it. and the pricing, therefore, is very aggressive, particularly when stacked up against competition. And I would encourage people to contact you guys directly and see what the best structure for the tool would be to fit their needs and to work with somebody like you.
Really excited to chat to clients about satellite, and I mentioned it recently at the conversion conference here in London. You guys have developed a fantastic tool that isn't standing and waiting for the competition to release features that you're copying. You're one of the sort of true innovators in the analytics and web optimization space. So really commend you guys for that. At Elisa DVI, we're looking forward to seeing what else you guys produce so that we can work with our clients to make a better internet overall.
That's exactly the hope.
Well, I think it's a fantastic tool. It's been great chatting to you. I've actually learnt some stuff today as well. I thought I had a pretty good grasp of it, but I've seen some new features there which I'm going to go and try now. So thanks, Evan, and we look forward to chatting with you in the future.
My pleasure, guys. Thanks a lot.
Thanks,
Cheers, Evan.